Hello traders, in today's video we're going to be looking at the put call ratio again, which is an indicator for Bitcoin sentiment. I am actually pretty shocked at just how well this indicator has worked, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's dive right into the put call ratio. Cue the music. All right traders, let's go look at the put call ratio of Deribit, BTC, and Ethereum options. So this is a site, viewbase.com. I think I've covered this before, and it is a completely free site, so you don't have to pay or do some subscription thing to get here. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you guys about, which isn't going to be the focus, but I do want to talk about it, is the fact that currently the majority of call and put contracts, the majority of contracts out there, like, it's not even close. Most open interest is held by calls. So what it looks like here is that about for every, let's say, with this stat it's telling me right here, let's say that there are 10 contracts out there. So just 10 options contracts. 9 of those contracts are calls, and 1 of those contracts are puts, just about, because the ratio here in open interest wise is 10 to 1. So it looks like just so many more people are betting on calls rather than puts. So moving beyond that, what I want to talk about there are 2 ways that trading against or betting against what most people are doing can work in the options market. First example, let's say that a bunch of people start buying puts and a bunch of people start buying calls. Everyone's betting on market volatility. Well, what's going to end up happening there is implied volatility and options premiums are going to increase because there's so much demand for them. And when that happens, that's when you can begin to think about looking at a bearish volatility play. A bearish volatility play is something that takes advantage of high option premiums and bets on volatility being low. So examples of that would be something like an iron condor, Christmas tree spread, or butterfly spread. All of those are going to allow you to hedge yourself, but also make money from low volatility. Now, another way that we can take advantage of this isn't just looking at bullish or bearish volatility, options, but also sentiment. Let's say that just a bunch of people are buying calls out of the sudden, and like no one's buying puts, no one's transacting puts. Well, to me, that seems like a market where so many people are convinced that the market's just going to probably rise, that they're putting money on that fact, that I would be more bearish. So let's go through a few examples where stuff like this did occur. And I'm also going to I'm going to translate this first before we go any further. This really isn't telling me too much. All that this is telling me is market buys and market sells. So today, market buy wise, it looks like literally the exact same amount of calls have been market bought versus market sold. Put wise, it looks like a fair amount more have been market bought than market sold. I wouldn't, take too much away from this because it's only a difference of like 1.5 mil, so really not a lot of money. But I would say, if anything, this to me is telling me that the market's just slightly leaning toward more bearish, but this is really not like a crazy amount. But what I want to focus on is if we look at historical put-call ratio, what we can see here is that, okay, I don't know why I keep zooming in. Okay, let's reset that zoom. Okay, come on, buddy, work with me. It's like constantly, okay. I'm just going to go here. So what we can see here is on a day like January 8th, yeah, this is what I want to talk about. Look at what just happened here. $85 million worth of market bought calls, $55 million worth of market sold sells, and the put buy versus sell ratio wasn't that much. So basically January 8th, so many people were betting that the market was going to rise and were market buying calls. What happened January 8th, you may ask? Well, watch this. January 8th was the actual market top recently. Yep. So not surprisingly, what ended up happening is when just everyone went bananas and went crazy and just bought up as many calls as possible, that's actually when the market topped out. Not surprisingly. Okay, I'm going to refresh the page because like that blue slider thing isn't going away. So yeah. Oh, all right. Back to normal now. Now, other examples of that, there's also this one right here. I actually even haven't looked at this guy yet. Oh, blue slider guy's back. Lovely. So it looks like January 29th, the same exact thing happened. Now, I don't know what happened here, but all I can see is that it seemed like a lot of people were buying calls and selling puts, and both of those are bullish. If you sell a put, you're bullish. unless you're doing a multi-leg play. So January 29th, it seemed like sentiment was very, very, very bullish. And yeah, I could see why. I mean, the market just went insane. So basically, January 29th, people bought up way too much. If you had bought here, just where everyone else had bought, you'd probably not be buying at a great price. Well, you might say, what would have been a great price? Well, 2020 hindsight, but look what happened Feb 1st and the end of January right here. The market fell, and if you had gone to the hype when everyone else was buying calls, you would have bought at a terrible price, when in reality the price dipped a little bit lower. So let's go look at what was the action that occurred, February 1st and the end of January, because that's when would have been the best time to have bought this. So it looks like January 31st, nothing was happening, just like really not much activity at all. February 1st, just not much was happening either. So those wouldn't have been phenomenal signals for us, but they wouldn't have been terrible. It's not like the market is overly bullish there and you don't want to buy. Another example here that I want to show you guys, the last one is, January 7th was quite insane too. Look at the difference between call buys and call sells. Just so many more people were buying calls and shorting puts, and January 7th was actually right here. So these 2 days, not surprisingly, is when we had the largest amount of calls bought, literally right at the local market top. That's what happens. And then I wouldn't be surprised if like January 21st, January 22nd, all around here, people went maybe a little bit crazier for puts. So January 21st, oh yeah, look at that. That is beautiful. Look at that. $7 million more of shorted calls and about $4 million more, by my math, about $4 million more of bought puts. January 21st, just people were all betting the market was going to fall right here. So this is really, I think, one of the best ways you can analyze sentiment is looking at the put call ratio. The market is going to fluctuate. I mean, by price, the market's going to fluctuate, but by sentiment is really how the market fluctuates. By people becoming overly bullish and then people becoming overly bearish, and then they get screwed on both ends. And what you can do as a smart trader is look at this on two fronts. Let's go back to what I mentioned before. This isn't just something that we're using to determine if the price is probably going to fall or rise. That's not what I'm talking about. It is, but another part is volatility. You want to look at, like, let's say you look at a day where not many people have been market selling puts and calls, but everyone's been market buying puts and calls, and implied volatility has increased, option premium has increased. A lot of people are betting on volatility there. So if you bet on volatility as well, you're kind of late to the game, and you're going to probably buy at a bad price. But if you think that they're all wrong, and if you think that they're bloating up option premiums, then that's where you can come in and do something like a butterfly spread, a put butterfly spread or a call butterfly spread to take advantage of that kind of rapid increase. All right, so in people betting on volatility. All right, let's go look at Ethereum. I actually haven't looked at this yet, but it's the same kind of story. Just everyone is betting on the market rising with option markets and derivative. Like, look at this. We have of open contracts. We have a 400 mil versus a 14 mil. That's an insane ratio. Wow. Okay, let's go look at volume, not just open interest. Yeah, so today it looks like actually a lot more people are bearish than I thought. Look at that. Look how many sold calls. Wow. A fair amount of sold calls, actually. That's very interesting. To me, that might even be a bullish sign for Ethereum. If that many people are kind of been into the market, might, fall. All right, let's go look at when these guys got to an all-time high. January 10th, we didn't have that much of a difference. January 19th is more interesting to me. We just had a lot of people buying. Okay, so a lot of people January 19th were betting on volatility for Ethereum. They might have been right. But it seems like a fair amount of people were actually betting that the market would probably rise. If you look at the call buys versus call sells, let's go look at Ethereum perp on the 19th. I'll bet you, the 19th. So it looks like January 19th. So it seems like this is really right before the market just kind of corrected them and dumped. But yeah, this would not have been a great time to buy calls. You would have bought calls at a pretty bad price. Because you're buying them when Ethereum's right up there. But if you had bought calls the 22nd or the 21st, let's go look at what was going on there. Look at that. more calls have been sold on the 22nd than calls were bought, but also more puts were sold. So a lot of people here were actually betting on low volatility for Ethereum. Because look at that. I mean, it's not a large number. And I know they're multi-leg plays, but a lot of people here were market selling options, betting that the market wouldn't be that volatile on the 22nd. And boy, were they wrong. I mean, this is, I think plus 11% of one day is definitely volatile. I mean, yeah, it seems like traders here were bearish, totally bearish on the 21st. Look at that. Mostly sold calls and mostly bought puts on the 21st. And yeah, the market fell quite a bit, but if the market fell and people were going long calls and shorting puts, maybe the market would fall lower. But what happened here is people were converted into becoming sellers. They became sellers, and then they bet on low volatility here, and were betting the market would fall, and then they got kind of screwed over. And that is how you can kind of do a two-pronged approach on both volatility and on sentiment. Again, we're not just going to look for, is this bullish or bearish based on the put-call ratio? You're going to also need to look at volatility. Because to be honest with you guys, if I'm using this, the main reason would be volatility, because the best options trades that I've ever had have always been when people underestimate volatility. When a lot of people are selling premium, when a lot of people are shorting calls and shorting puts, and they just depress the price of option contracts, that's a great time to swoop in and pick up cheap options that can have pretty large upside. I mean, you're not always going to get that kind of scenario, but it happens sometimes. Okay, let's look at more recent. Whoa, what had happened? What is that? January 29th. Why was everyone bearish? Or at least a lot of people were selling calls January 29th. Am I missing something? January 29th, everyone was just so bearish. They were kind of right. I mean, I don't know why everyone was just selling calls here, though. Yeah, interesting. It's a very strange, very, very strange thing that happened here. I mean, I'd be more inclined to buy calls here because everyone else was selling calls. But if I had done that, I probably would have hit a bit of a drawdown. I mean, but still. So yeah, this indicator definitely is not perfect by any stretch, but I found it works better than I had given it credit for. I would use it on Bitcoin and I would use it on Ethereum, especially Ethereum because it's making all-time highs. And you need to keep analyzing sentiment to see, are people still bullish? Are people bearish? How do people think that Ethereum will act in the future? Because typically, as a contrarian, I would love to see two things happen on Ethereum. If I want to go long a call contract, for example, I would love to see a lot of people selling options, because that tells me that people are cashing out of their long option trades, and then they're also potentially betting on low volatility, which is dangerous. And then what I would also love to see is a lot of people buying puts, and then that would potentially be a nice, little short-term call, long call opportunity. Yeah, so back to Bitcoin here. I'm not really seeing anything too crazy today besides some people buying puts, which could rise price a little bit. But yeah, that's going to do it for really the two ways that you can take advantage of a put-call ratio and also take advantage of the Viewbase site. You're going to look at how do people think, how volatile do options traders believe the market will be? And then part two is looking at, is this bearish or bullish based on the trades that are coming in? And the third thing you can do, which is a little bit more advanced, but I'd recommend you do it. If you go to Deribit BTC option volume today, you can actually expand certain things here. So if I want to look at just the daily options, I can click the plus here. I can click the plus here, and you can actually see the change in how people are reacting to these things. So if I look at the Feb 7, I can see, okay, so it looks like not many people are selling these options, but selling these calls, but a fair amount of people have been buying calls. I mean, not a fair amount. This is only $23,000. It's not really a crazy amount, but you can look more detailed if you so desire. That's the third thing you can do. The fourth thing you can do, I mean, you could potentially, I don't think that that's going to help you too much. The fourth thing that you could do for sure is just going to look at open value. I think that right now, too many people in options markets are bullish. I mean, I think that's easy for me to say. On Ethereum, we had a 401 mil versus a 14 mil. I've never seen a put call open interest ratio that crazy. And then also on Bitcoin, the put call ratio is about 10 to 1 in open interest, not in volume. That to me is a little scary. Yeah, that's a little scary. and that's a little bit bearish medium term. But we'll see what happens. And yeah, happy trading. And also my options guide will be coming out soon. It's going to be a lot more detailed, and I think it's going to help out a lot of you guys. So I'm looking forward to releasing that. Happy trading.